That was great. Timing is everything. Hello, everybody. I'm back again. Sorry for the delay with Twitch. I was waiting for the other stream to load. This is what happens when you're doing it all yourself and you're not running through an aggregator. Okay, so for those of you who are just tuning in, I'm not even going to bother. You guys need to go back to the beginning. Just start at the beginning, turn it off, go back to chapter 1, because we're on chapter 28 tonight. 28. The book's not that thick, so I'm pretty sure we're getting close to the end. We're getting there. So, yeah. That's on you. Anyway, so, any rate, this is chapter 28 of The Guardian. The 1982 version, 1977 version is back there, and I'm checking to see the differences between the two. So what's interesting about tonight is, I know it's going to sound weird for people, but like I got to a page that was turned backwards. It means something. It's not just an accident. It was, I'm vaguely remembering that the page was turned backward because that's where he was at with his revising. I want to say that's what it was. He was there with his revising, and so he had the page turned like that. It strikes me as a thing that he used to do with his old manuscripts, and that's like these like. This one is typed on an electric typewriter. It's one of the last ones he did on an electric typewriter before he changed over to computer. So yeah, this is all on the typewriter, and not even and so it's like there's some of his other older manuscripts after this went to the tractor feed because that's all they had they had the daisy wheel printers that had like the letters on them, and then after that they went to the dot matrix printers, which were all the fad. Yeah, long before laser jets and inkjets, there were daisy wheels and dot matrices. Anyway, you're not here to hear me babble on about printers and the evolution of printers. You're here to listen to another chapter in Guardian of the Sword. So let's do this. Chapter 28. When Rorik led his warriors to the Notch, he was in full expectation that few of them would return. It was a gamble which could allow the king to win the war, for it only took a few men from the Asbelinian host, and yet would delay Shakara in the Notch long enough that his arrival could make no effective difference to the battle. The Hygerian War by Randall of Aventir. The warriors gathered the spears quickly, looking a little nervously towards the mass of the rallying Hygerians. The army allowed them little time, but it was enough for each to take up a javelin. Rorik set 20 men aside, formed into a wedge, and told them, "When I need you, I shall need you immediately. See that you watch me at all times." The Hygerians came shouting up the hill again, a dark wave intent on swamping the Asbelinians. Suddenly, they checked to throw their javelins. The warriors answered them, and several fell on both sides. Then came Rorik's shout, and the front rank crouched as javelins whipped overhead. This caught the Hygerians by surprise, and several more of them fell. Then Dolan's men were up and into them. In the first clashing minutes, Rorik saw his opportunity. He called to the men in the wedge, "Follow me!" Waiting only so long as it took them to form nearly at his back, he rushed forward. They pushed through the Asbelinian ranks, deep into the mass of the Hygerians beyond. where they began to fight. After the javelins and Dolan's unexpected charge, this was enough to discourage them. Not that the fight was immediately over, for these were the Hygerian infantry, determined to prove their abilities. But their attack was thoroughly halted and thrown off balance. At last, leaving their dead piled behind them, they withdrew, but they were not broken. Rorik looked back down into the valley where the main battle was taking place. The Hygerians were attacking again, infantry in the center, cavalry on the wings. But the warriors themselves were under attack once more. All Rorik's men had suffered some wound, superficial or serious, while among the Hygerians there were men who had not yet fought. Again, javelins flew. Laiwan, who held the standard, fell. But before the standard could fall, Dolan caught it up and was bearing it forward suddenly into the face of the Hygerian attack. The Westerners gathered around him, and he began to fight. Rorik, realizing that what Dolan was attempting to do, shouted to the men, "Form around the standard!" The warriors went forward in a determined rush, flinging themselves against the Hygerian force so fiercely as to cause the Hygerians to check their advance. Rorik, with Buran just behind him, cut his way first to Dolan's side. Caught by surprise again, the Hygerians began to withdraw once more, still fighting. But even so, they backed off the field. Buran fell, mortally wounded. Now the Asbelnians held the field alone once more. 53 of the warriors remained on their feet. Rorik spared a glance toward the valley. The Hygerians appeared to be outmaneuvered, but the last of their infantry was being thrown in, so the issue remained in doubt. Then, far off, coming round the corner of Chalden Wood, there appeared a squadron of cavalry. The distance was too great to be sure, but they seemed to be dressed in Asbelnian fashion. But he could not stand idly staring. His men were gathering Hygerian spears again, and he had given them instructions to form a circle when the barbarians came again. The warriors were ready none too soon, for suddenly Hygerian spears were falling among them. The warriors answered them, and Rorik looked to the right and left at the men in the circle. Ah well, who wants to live forever? The Hygerians surged against them on all sides, and the battle raged and clanged. The circle shrunk slightly, and Rorik was standing with Dolan on his left hand. The Hygerians seemed to fall back a pace, the better to leap upon the warriors for the finish. In that instant, Dolan said, "They are all around us now, and determined to destroy us." In the same instant, Rorik shrugged and answered, "They have left themselves little room to escape us then." Even as he spoke, he remembered young Tamel, dead on Aventur's walls so long ago. His jest leaped from man to man around the ring. They smiled as they fought. The Dark Ones now had room to push past to the plains below. Had that been their wish. The Dark Ones now had room to push past the plains below, had that been their wish. But it seemed that they wished to destroy the last of the Guardians' warriors. All that remained was for the warriors to fight as long as they could, for it was clear they would not leave the Notch alive. The noise of battle was so loved that the sound of hooves only reached them at the very moment when they realized that help was coming. Up and over the Notch came horsemen, barely glimpsed between the masked foemen. But over the heads of horsemen was the upraised sword. Rorik caught sight of Donnell the Bane, face set, lance poised, as he led the charge. The Hygerians held, then suddenly began to break apart under the pressure. Their fierce determination melted before this new attack, and about 400 of them fled the field. Of the Guardians' warriors, 21 would march down from the Notch. 6 were wounded, but would probably recover. 23 were wounded near to death, and could only be bandaged and prayed for. Donal and his men pursued the Hygerians, only until it was certain they were leaving. They returned to give a formal salute to Rorik and his men. "Hail, Guardian! It seems that we have come only just in time. And what of your orders? Were that you wished and what of your orders, which were that you should stay in Aventir? We were none of us very happy at being left behind, and with those who had been wounded and recovered, or those who were newly recruited, there were enough to keep Aventir safe. When the news of Hardinian came to us, we cast lots, and the winners agreed to mutiny. We took the best horses we could find, rode through the Guardian's Pass, bypassed Coral, and rode overland to here. When we saw your sword banner at the notch, we rode to join you." Dolan, bone weary and bloody, his mail hammered to rags, leaned heavily on the staff of the banner beside the Guardian. A slight smile touched his lips as he looked at Donal. "Mutineers all," he declared sternly. Then his smile broadened as he said, "Yet never did I see so loyal a band of mutineers." Rorik laughed. "Well, my most loyal mutineers, hear the sentence of your punishment. You shall aid us in finding all those of our comrades that remain alive here, and those shall you transport to our camp below, that they may be cared for." "It shall be done, my lord." Down in the valley, the remnants of the Hygerian host were fleeing in the direction of the city of Coral, leaving behind, among the many dead, Razek's dreams of the extended kingdom. Rorik cast his eyes over the field where he stood, where those who remained of his warriors were at work making litters, and gently laying on them the bodies of wounded comrades. He wandered among them himself, telling off in his mind the roll of the fallen, the comrades of long marches and hard fights. At last he took a seat on a boulder. Dolan, coming to consult with his commander, noticed tears in the Guardian's eyes, but said nothing. Perhaps it was because of the tears in his own eyes. "Lord Guardian, what are we to do with the Hygerian wounded who are left behind?" "Care for our own first, and then do what you can for the Hygerians. There's been more than enough butchery here today." The Guardian and his warriors wended wended their wounded wended wended their way slowly to the valley, and as they came down, Donal and Fedrin rode over to meet them. Fedrin had lost one of the wings from his helmet and bore a slight gash on his right thigh. Cadell had only a few scratches, but his shield was thoroughly battered. "Hail, Guardian! Hail, warriors of the Guardian! You have brought this day the freedom of our people. Hail to you, my lord king. Clearly you did not merely stand by while purses were being opened. You will not have had them pursued?" Connell viewed the field around him, where corpses of the Hygerians were piled high, with no few Asbalanians among them. "Pursuit? Enough and more than enough have died this day. They are leaving Asbalon. There are those among them who are still willing to fight, and we will deal with those as we must. But we will not increase their numbers by pursuing them so closely that men must fight out of desperation. Bring your men down to the camp. There is one thing to be done first. Baran fell upon the notch, and he shall be given to the hero fire." They gathered wood for the pyre down beside the forest, and when it was sufficient, they lay Hygerian weapons atop it, then sat the body of Baran on that. Rorik himself set the torch to the pyre, and as the flames leapt into the darkening sky, he sang, It was a hero song, of the sort had been sung in the times before the old island burned and sank. Hear my song of stern strife, song of men of war. Hear the song of swift Baran, who will return no more. Fierce riding foemen came, gun of Asbelon fell. Dark cloaks walked each city wall, sought each wood and dell. Connell in the hills concealed, called for men to fight. Aventure fell in bitter battle on a bloody night. Came the sword to Connell's side, came to raise the land. Came the heir of Ralph Starblade with his little band. Swift men from the hills rode, raiding on the plain. In the hills a hidden army learned to fight again. Learned to fight again. When at last they sought a battle, who stood at their head? But who, who but he that had taught them? He who ever led? Yes, Baran the Swift, the loyal, bearing blade to fight. Woe to us who mourn you on this cheerless night. Leaping flames to skyward, honor thus our friend, who in this day's battle met his foreseen end. Dreary blow the winds of autumn, mournfully and chill. Sere and brown the grass lies, dying on the hill. Green will grow the grass in spring, flowers find the rebirth. But Baran the Swift no more will walk upon the earth. As the fire burned, they could see in the valley other fires, where other heroes of Asbalin were being treated as Baran was. Before he retired for the night, Rourke took a turn through the camp, according to his usual habit. He passed also through the tents where the wounded were kept. As he approached, he met a man leaving, whom he recognized as Brigir, son of Kata. His young face was set and grim. What brings you here, son of Kata? My father is wounded once more, and it has fallen to me to bear him the word that Danann lays dead on the field. This victory of yours was dearly bought, Lord Guardian. So are all victories, Briogir. And I say this, who have left comrades on many fields since first I drew sword in battle. Yet we have recovered our land, and this, we must hope, is worth the price. Dun, dun, dun! Yes, it's a sadder chapter. Yeah. I mean, we were foretold this was going to happen. He foretold his own death. But it doesn't make it any less sad, although I think it was sadder in the other manuscript. I kind of want to combine the two. I think I'm going to be combining the two. But anyway, that is that for tonight. I really appreciate you tuning in. It is what it is tonight. Yeah, but thank you so much for. Yeah, it's a shorter chapter, but I, this one's actually one of the better ones. Pardon me. The fantasy could have more fantasy in it. Maybe less military. But my dad was also a military historian, so what are you gonna do? Yeah, the other one had more magic in it. This one has less magic in it, more military, but in some ways a little more human. So I don't know. Like I said, I kind of want to combine the two. That's my little commentary for tonight. But I will talk to you all again tomorrow night. So, like I said, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching past broadcasts, and I will talk to you all again later.